she's still watching you. She won't text first, she won't call. But don't fool yourself, her silence doesn't mean she's forgotten. Most men fall into this trap. The moment a woman goes quiet, they panic. They check her social media, they replay old conversations, they start guessing what went wrong. And when the silence stretches longer, the desperation creeps in. They break, they reach out, they chase. And that's exactly when their value collapses. Here's the reality. Silence isn't the end. It's the test. She may not say a word, but she's observing. She's watching how you react when you're left without her attention. Do you crumble? Do you chase? Or do you remain unshaken? This is where most men lose, but where Stoicism gives you the edge. The truth is simple. What you don't say speaks louder than anything you could text. Your ability to stay calm, to hold your ground, to embrace stillness, that's what flips the script. Because the man who controls himself controls the frame, and the man who controls the frame wins. In this video, I'll break down the Stoic truth behind her silence, why she's still watching, and how your restraint becomes the most attractive power you have. Let's get into it. Number 1. She's addicted to watching. Here's what most men don't realize. When a woman goes silent, it doesn't mean she's gone. In fact, many times, she's still watching you more than ever. She checks your social media. She looks at when you're online. She notices the changes in your energy. And the more she watches without engaging, the more she feeds a subtle addiction. Take Richard, 56, from California. After his divorce, he started dating again and met Susan, 51, through mutual friends. Things went well at first, dinners, long phone calls, weekends together. But then Susan pulled back. No texts, no calls. Weeks went by, and Richard assumed she'd moved on. But then, out of nowhere, friends began telling him she'd asked about him. She'd viewed his posts. She'd even liked a few old photos when she thought he wouldn't notice. She wasn't gone. She was quietly watching, making sure she still had space in his mind. This is what many women do. They disappear in action, but not in attention. They watch because it keeps them in control. They want to know you're still there, still thinking, still waiting. And the moment you react by chasing, by texting, by breaking the silence, they get the validation they were looking for. Not because they want you back, but because they want to know they could have you back. That's why her silence doesn't mean disinterest. It often means she's curious to see if you'll break. She's addicted to that quiet game of control. And the more you play into it, the stronger her hold becomes. But here's the Stoic truth. You don't control whether she watches. You control how you respond to being watched. If you panic, if you try to prove yourself, you confirm her power. But if you remain calm, if you stay grounded, if you keep living your life without flinching, you flip the dynamic. Suddenly, her watching turns into wondering. She starts asking herself, why isn't he chasing me? Why is he so still? What's changed? And that's where your power lies. Because women aren't addicted to silence itself, they're addicted to the reaction silence creates. Remove that reaction, and the game collapses. Instead of you being predictable, you become mysterious. And mystery is what pulls her in more than any message ever could. Richard eventually learned this. He stopped checking to see if Susan was watching. He stopped posting for her. He focused on his work, his health, his circle of friends. And the less he reacted, the more obvious her watching became. She showed up at places she knew he'd be. She sent small, meaningless messages just to test his attention. But by then, he understood he wasn't supposed to feed the addiction. He was supposed to hold his frame. So remember this. Her watching doesn't mean you should act. It means you should stand still. She can observe, but she doesn't control. And the moment you take back that frame, the entire power dynamic shifts. If you've ever noticed a woman still watching even after she went silent, drop it in the comments. I see the truth. And here's what matters most. You don't win by trying harder. You win by doing less, by letting her curiosity build while you stay unshaken, because the man who stays calm under her silence is the man she can't ignore. And that truth sets the stage for everything that follows. Number 2. She fears losing control more than losing you. Here's the truth most men miss. When a woman pulls away, her biggest fear isn't that she might lose you, it's that she might lose control over you. Think about it. If she really wanted you gone, she wouldn't keep watching, testing, or dropping subtle hints to see how you'll respond. What she's protecting isn't the relationship, it's the influence she has on your emotions. And as long as she knows you'll chase, text first, or fold under pressure, she feels secure. Not secure in love, but secure in control. This is why silence becomes a weapon. By saying nothing, she forces you to reveal your hand. She wants to see if you'll break. And when you do, when you send the, "Hey, just checking in" text or start explaining yourself, you hand the power back to her. She doesn't need to come closer because she already got what she wanted, the reassurance that you're still hooked. The Stoics warned against this kind of trap. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." If your emotions are tied to her silence, you're not in control, she is. And the longer you let her dictate your moves, the further you drift from freedom. So here's the shift. She isn't afraid of losing you. She's afraid of losing the control her silence gives her. And that means the most powerful response isn't chasing or clarifying, it's doing nothing. It's holding your frame. It's letting her wonder instead of reassuring her. Picture it like this. She leaves your message unanswered for days. She posts a story meant to spark curiosity. She lingers around mutual friends but never reaches out. It's not because she's confused. It's because she wants to measure your reaction. Do you engage? Do you panic? Or do you stay composed, moving forward as if nothing happened? Men who fail here make the same mistake. They think love is proven through persistence. They believe that showing constant effort is how they demonstrate value. But persistence in the wrong place isn't strength, it's surrender. Because when your effort goes to someone who's testing you, not choosing you, all you're doing is feeding her control. On the other hand, men who understand this dynamic flip the script. They recognize that silence isn't an obstacle, it's an opportunity. It's the chance to show discipline, to prove, not to her, but to yourself, that your emotions are yours to command, and that's when the power shifts. The less you give her to measure, the more uncertain she becomes. And uncertainty is what creates attraction. Remember this, a woman's interest doesn't need to hide behind games. When she wants you, she shows it. When she doesn't, she tests you. And if you pass the test by refusing to break, she realizes something she didn't expect, that her silence doesn't control you anymore. If you've ever held your ground instead of chasing when she pulled back, write it in the comments. I hold the frame. And here's why this matters. Because the moment you stop giving away control, everything changes. She starts to feel the weight of her own silence. And instead of you wondering what she's thinking, she's the one wondering why you're so steady. That's the power of Stoicism in practice, and that's exactly what separates a man who reacts from a man who leads. Number 3. The one who cares less wins. There's an unspoken rule in relationships, and most men hate to admit it. The one who cares less always holds the power. That doesn't mean you shouldn't care at all. It means that when your sense of worth depends on her reaction, you've already lost. Because the person who is less invested emotionally controls the pace, the tone, and the direction of the connection. Take Thomas, 55, from New York. He started dating Emily, 51, after meeting through mutual friends. At first, Emily seemed interested, long conversations, quick replies, plenty of laughs. But then things shifted. She began pulling back, answering only when convenient, and taking hours or even days to reply. Thomas, afraid of losing her, doubled down. He texted more often, explained himself more, and tried to prove his value. But the harder he pushed, the more she withdrew. The imbalance was obvious. Thomas cared more, and Emily cared less. And in that equation, Emily held all the power. This is how it works. When you show that her approval dictates your behavior, you hand her control. She becomes the one deciding how close or how distant things will be, and you're left reacting instead of leading. But when you flip it, when you stop chasing, when you stop trying to force responses, you regain balance. Suddenly, she's the one wondering. She's the one questioning. Because indifference creates uncertainty, and uncertainty creates attraction. Men often mistake this truth for cruelty. They think, but shouldn't I show I care? Of course. But caring isn't the problem over. Caring is. When your effort outweighs hers, she feels no urgency to invest. She knows you'll be there no matter what. And that certainty kills desire. The Stoics had a clear perspective on this. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." In relationships, your power lies in not giving more emotional weight than the other person is offering. When you care less, not out of spite but out of discipline, you stop giving her control over your inner state, and that's what restores your strength. Think back to Thomas. When he finally recognized the imbalance, he pulled back. He stopped sending double texts. He stopped explaining himself. He started focusing on his hobbies and friendships instead of waiting for her replies. Within weeks, Emily noticed the difference. Suddenly, she was reaching out first. Suddenly, she was more curious about what he was doing. Why? Because the equation flipped. He no longer cared more than she did, and that uncertainty pulled her back. This is the paradox of attraction. The more you try to prove yourself, the less she values you. The less you try to prove yourself, the more valuable you appear. It's not about playing games, it's about holding your ground. So here's the lesson. The man who maintains calm detachment never loses. He knows his worth doesn't depend on her attention. He doesn't need constant reassurance. And because of that, he wins not by crushing her, but by protecting his frame. If you've ever stopped over-caring and saw the power shift back to you, say it in the comments. I hold the power. And once you internalize this truth, you'll never approach silence the same way again. You'll stop fearing it and start using it. Because when you learn that the one who cares less wins, you stop chasing and start leading. And that single shift changes everything. Number 4. Your absence is more powerful than your words. Here's something most men never understand. When a woman goes silent, no speech, no explanation, no clever line will flip the situation in your favor. What speaks loudest in that moment isn't what you say, it's your absence. Think about it. Words are cheap when emotions are gone. You can send paragraphs explaining how much you care. You can beg for another chance. You can try to prove your worth with promises. But if she's already pulled back, every word lands flat. Instead of drawing her closer, it reminds her that she has the upper hand. Your effort becomes her validation. Absence, on the other hand, changes the entire equation. When you step back, when you stop responding, when you disappear from the stage, something powerful happens. Her certainty crumbles. She expected you to chase, to explain, to keep feeding her ego. But when you don't, you create space. And space is where doubt grows. This is why absence has more weight than words ever will. Words try to convince. Absence forces reflection. She begins asking questions she didn't expect to ask. Why isn't he reaching out? Has he moved on? Did he stop caring? That curiosity is far more effective than any argument you could make. The Stoics understood this principle. Seneca once said, "Silence is a lesson learned through life's many sufferings." For men, the silence of absence is discipline. It's resisting the urge to break frame. It's understanding that you gain more by stepping back than by speaking out. Because absence isn't weakness, it's strength under control. Picture this common scenario. She hasn't texted in days. You feel the urge to write something, anything to break the silence. Maybe a, "Hey, just checking in." maybe a long explanation of how you feel. But if you resist, if you let the silence stand, the power dynamic shifts. Suddenly, she's the one left wondering. She can ignore your words, but she can't ignore the void your absence creates. Absence communicates what words can't, that you are not dependent on her validation, that your world keeps moving with or without her, that you are in control of yourself, not desperate for hers. And that message delivered without a single syllable is what forces her to see you differently. Men often fear absence because it feels like surrender, but in reality, it's the opposite. It's reclaiming control. By refusing to fill the silence, you stop being predictable. You stop giving her the easy validation she expects, and instead, you let your distance speak volumes. Here's the truth. If she truly values you, absence will draw her closer. If she doesn't, absence reveals that faster than words ever could. Either way, you win because clarity comes quicker and your energy isn't wasted. So the next time you're tempted to explain yourself, remember this: words can be ignored, twisted, or dismissed. Absence cannot. If you've ever chosen silence over chasing and saw the power shift, write it in the comments. I choose silence. And once you start mastering the discipline of absence, you'll never panic in the face of silence again. You'll understand that what you don't say is far more powerful than what you do. And that single shift can change how you handle every relationship moving forward. Number 5. If she really wanted you, she'd be there. Here's a truth most men struggle to accept. When a woman truly wants you, nothing stands in her way. Not work, not distance, not her busy schedule. She'll find a way to be present. But when she doesn't, you'll feel the constant excuses, the constant delays, the endless silence. And the hardest part is admitting that her absence is the answer you've been avoiding. Take Brian, 58, from Ohio. After reconnecting with Lisa, 54, an old acquaintance, he was optimistic. They grabbed coffee, shared stories about the past, and Brian thought there was potential. But soon, he noticed the imbalance. Every time he tried to set plans, Lisa was too busy. She was either tied up with work, caught up with family, or just not in the mood. Weeks went by, and still, she hadn't made time for him. Brian excused it at first, telling himself she was stressed, or maybe things would change soon. But deep down, he knew, if she really wanted to see him, she would have made it happen. That's the reality men often fight against. We want to believe the timing is wrong. We want to believe she's just overwhelmed. But women who are truly interested don't let busyness get in the way. They make time even if it's just a short call, a coffee break, or a late-night chat. Why? Because when you matter, they want your presence. The problem comes when you cling to excuses instead of accepting her behavior. You start filling the silence with hope. You start imagining that her absence is temporary, that she'll eventually come around. But the truth is, if she's not showing up now, she's already made her choice. This doesn't mean she's cruel. It doesn't mean she's playing games. It simply means you're not her priority. And as painful as that is, it's also liberating. Because once you stop chasing what isn't choosing you, you regain your time, your focus, your energy. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." In this context, stop wasting time arguing with reality. If she's not present, don't debate her reasons. Be the man who accepts the truth and moves forward. Let's return to Brian. When he finally stopped making excuses for Lisa's absence, everything became clear. She wasn't going to make the effort because she didn't want to. That freed him to invest in himself, and eventually he met someone who showed him what real presence looks like, someone who wanted to be there without excuses. And that's the difference. You should never have to convince someone to show up for you. If she wants to, she will. If she doesn't, she won't. It's that simple. So here's the rule. Stop chasing absence. Stop reading into excuses. Stop hoping silence means something other than what it is. Her actions or lack of them tell you everything you need to know. If you've ever realized she wasn't showing up and chose to walk away, write it in the comments. I see the truth. Because once you accept this reality, you'll never waste time waiting on someone who doesn't want to be there. You'll recognize that presence is proof and excuses are answers. And when you embrace that, you stop settling for absence and start demanding presence, and that shift changes everything. Number 6. Silence makes her crave your mystery. Here's something men rarely believe until they see it for themselves. Your silence is not empty. It's magnetic. When you stop talking, when you stop explaining, when you stop chasing, you create a gap that makes her imagination run wild. And in that gap, mystery grows. Most men ruin their chances by over-explaining. She pulls back, and they immediately fill the silence with words. They write long messages, trying to prove they're valuable. They post updates just to signal they're doing fine. They drop hints on social media, hoping she'll notice. But all of that destroys mystery. It shows her exactly where you stand, and once she knows, her curiosity dies. On the other hand, when you embrace silence, you create the opposite effect. She doesn't know what you're thinking. She doesn't know what you're doing. She doesn't know if you've moved on, if you're seeing someone else, or if you simply don't care. That uncertainty is powerful. It forces her to pay attention. The Stoics valued this principle deeply. Epictetus said, "If you wish to be a writer, write." Applied here, if you wish to be respected, live. Don't talk about how you're moving on. Actually move on. Don't announce your confidence, embody it. Silence isn't passive. It's action without explanation. And that action creates mystery far stronger than any speech. Think about how human desire works. We don't crave what we fully understand. We crave what we can't quite figure out. When she can't read you, when she can't predict you, she keeps watching. She checks your profile. She asks mutual friends about you. She replays old memories, wondering why you're not reaching out. That curiosity keeps you in her mind, long after words would have faded. Men often fear silence because they think it means losing her. But in reality, silence is often what makes her realize she hasn't lost you, she's losing her grip on you. And that loss of control makes her crave you more. Not because of what you said, but because of what you didn't say. Of course, silence must be genuine. It can't be a trick. If you're sitting around waiting for her to notice, constantly checking her reactions, that's not silence, that's hidden desperation. Real silence is living your life fully, with or without her. It's showing by your actions that your world doesn't revolve around her presence. That's the mystery that draws her in. Here's the paradox. The less accessible you are, the more valuable you become. The less you reveal, the more she wants to know. And the more she wonders, the stronger her pull toward you grows. So, remember this. Silence isn't emptiness. It's a message, a boundary, and an invitation to wonder. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't need to announce your value. You just need to live it quietly and let the mystery do the work. If you've ever seen a woman grow more curious about you after you stop talking, write it in the comments. I live in mystery. And here's the real beauty of this truth. Once you embrace silence, you'll see how powerful it feels. Not just in relationships, but in life. Because silence doesn't weaken your presence, it amplifies it. And when you master that, you stop chasing and you start attracting. Number 7. She tests your frame with subtle moves. Here's something men often overlook. When a woman goes quiet, she isn't always gone. Sometimes she's testing you. Not with big, obvious gestures, but with small, subtle moves designed to see if you'll break frame. Take Daniel, 56, from Texas. After dating Anna, 51, for a few months, he noticed her communication patterns shift. She stopped responding as quickly. She left his texts on read, and every now and then, she'd post a picture with another guy in the background, not to announce she was dating, but just enough to see how Daniel would react. At first, Daniel panicked. He double-texted, asked questions, even brought up the photos. And every time he did, Anna pulled further away. Why? Because she wasn't testing for answers. She was testing for control. That's what frame is about. Your frame is your emotional ground. It's how you carry yourself no matter what she does. And when she tests you, she's not looking for you to pass by saying the right words. She's looking to see if her actions can shake your balance. This is why silence and subtle provocations are powerful tools. If she can trigger a reaction, she knows she still holds influence. If she can't, she starts questioning her grip on you. And that uncertainty is what makes her curious again. The Stoics understood this perfectly. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Applied here, her moves are outside events. Your reaction is within. The moment you let her provoke you into chasing, explaining, or defending yourself, you've handed her control. But when you remain calm, unshaken, and steady, you prove something far more valuable. You show that your frame is stronger than her test. These subtle moves can take many forms. She might suddenly go cold in conversation. She might drop hints about other men. She might disappear for a few days, only to reappear with a casual, "Hey." None of these are random. They're designed to measure your self-control. Do you get anxious and chase, or do you stay composed and let her silence sit? Daniel eventually learned this. Instead of reacting to Anna's subtle provocations, he pulled back. He didn't confront her photos. He didn't double-text. He didn't scramble to win back her attention. He stayed in his frame, focused on his work, his fitness, and his circle. And what happened? Anna came back, not because of what Daniel said, but because of what he didn't do. His silence made her realize she wasn't shaking him anymore. That's the lesson. Her tests aren't about her, they're about you. They reveal whether you're in control of yourself or controlled by her moves. The man who passes isn't the one who plays games back. It's the one who doesn't need to play at all. So the next time you sense her subtle test, remember, it's not a challenge to explain yourself. It's a chance to prove to yourself that your frame is intact. If you've ever held your frame and refused to break under her test, write it in the comments. I hold my ground. And here's why this matters, because once you stop reacting to every subtle move, you become unpredictable. And unpredictability creates mystery. And mystery, more than anything, keeps you in control. That's the kind of discipline that separates men who lead from men who chase. Number 8. Desire fades when you over-explain. Here's a mistake men make all the time. They think explaining themselves will fix everything. She pulls back, she goes quiet, she ignores a message, and suddenly you're typing a long text to justify, clarify, or convince. You think if she just understood your intentions, she'd come back. But the reality is the opposite. The more you explain, the faster desire fades. Why? Because attraction isn't built on logic, it's built on emotion, mystery, and presence. When you over-explain, you strip all of that away. You leave nothing to wonder about. You show her exactly where you stand, uncertain, insecure, and too eager to please. And that kills the spark faster than silence ever could. Think about it. If she ignores your message and you respond with a paragraph, what does that communicate? It tells her you're shaken. It tells her you're desperate for clarity. It tells her that her silence controls you. And if she can control you that easily, why should she chase you? The Stoics understood the danger of wasted words. Epictetus once said, "Let silence be your general rule, or say only what is necessary and in few words." That wisdom applies here perfectly. Every unnecessary explanation weakens your presence. Every extra word erodes the sense of strength she once felt around you. Sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all. Over-explaining also shifts the frame. Instead of her working to earn your attention, you're working to justify why you deserve hers. And once you flip into that role, the balance is gone. You're no longer the man she was curious about. You're the man trying to prove his worth. And proof, in this context, always feels like weakness. It's important to realize this. Attraction thrives on uncertainty. She wants to wonder. She wants to guess what you're thinking. She wants to question why you're not chasing. But when you explain every detail, you kill the tension. You remove the very mystery that made her curious in the first place. Here's the shift. Stop thinking explanations equal connection. Real connection isn't forced through words, it's felt through presence, behavior, and consistency. You don't need to write paragraphs to prove you're confident. You show confidence by not breaking under her silence. You show value by living fully, whether she engages or not. Picture this. She pulls back for a week. Instead of chasing, you let it be. You stay focused on your life, your purpose, your discipline. You don't explain. You don't justify. And in that silence, her curiosity starts to grow. She wonders why you're so steady. She questions why you didn't react like other men. That shift is what reignites interest, not words, not explanations, but your ability to withhold them. So remember, the man who overexplains weakens himself. The man who stays calm in silence grows stronger. Words can argue, but absence can prove. And when you stop giving her explanations, you stop feeding her control. If you've ever held back from over-explaining and saw her interest grow, write it in the comments. I keep it simple. And once you embrace this principle, you'll notice something powerful. You'll stop wasting energy trying to be understood. You'll stop chasing clarity where there is none. Instead, you'll let your actions and sometimes your silence do all the talking. And that shift doesn't just change how she sees you, it changes how you see yourself. Number 9. She feels your power in distance. Most men believe presence is what makes them strong. They think that if they just stay close, keep showing up, and keep proving themselves, a woman will value them more. But here's the paradox. Sometimes it's your absence, not your presence, that communicates the most power. She feels your strength when you create distance, when you step back and show her that your world doesn't revolve around her attention. Take Michael, 54, from Chicago. He started seeing Laura, 50, after meeting through a church group. At first, things seemed promising, but over time, Laura began pulling away. Shorter replies, delayed calls, vague excuses. Michael, like most men, felt the urge to push harder. But this time, instead of chasing, he chose something different: distance. He stopped reaching out first. He focused on his business, his workouts, and his weekend hobbies. And what happened? Laura noticed. She started asking mutual friends about him. She lingered longer on his social media. She even reached back out, curious about why he had suddenly become less available. That's the power of distance. It creates a vacuum, and in that vacuum, she feels the weight of your presence more than when you were constantly around. Because when you stop showing up on demand, you become rare, and scarcity always increases value. This doesn't mean you play games. It doesn't mean you punish her with silence. It means you respect yourself enough to not overextend. You stop trying to force interest where it isn't being given. You allow space, and in that space, she realizes something important. Your energy isn't hers to control. The Stoics were masters of this principle. Marcus Aurelius said, "He who lives in harmony with himself lives in harmony with the universe." When you step back, you're not doing it to manipulate her. You're doing it to protect your harmony. You're choosing to align with yourself, not with her inconsistency. And ironically, that alignment makes you far more attractive. Distance is powerful because it forces reflection. When you're always present, she doesn't have to think about you. You're a given, a constant. But when you step away, she has to confront the silence. She has to ask herself why you're not chasing. She has to feel the gap you left behind. And in that gap, her emotions start to shift. Men often fear distance because they think it means losing her. But here's the truth. If your absence makes no difference, she was never truly invested. And if your absence makes her feel something, then you've proven your point without lifting a finger. Either way, you win. Michael saw this firsthand. The moment he stopped being available on demand, Laura started to notice his absence. She realized she no longer had the same easy access to his time, his energy, his validation. That shift made her reconsider what she was losing. And whether or not she came back for good didn't matter, because Michael had already reclaimed his power. This is the lesson. Your presence should be a privilege, not a guarantee. When you make yourself too available, you lose value. When you create distance, you remind her that you're not an option to be taken for granted. So the next time you feel the urge to chase, remember this. Sometimes the strongest move isn't stepping closer, it's stepping back. Because in that space, she doesn't just see your strength, she feels it. If you've ever pulled back and watched her suddenly notice your absence, write it in the comments. I choose distance. And here's why this matters. Distance isn't about her, it's about you. It's about proving to yourself that your frame is strong enough to stand alone. And once you master that, you'll see how much more powerful you become, not by being present all the time, but by knowing when to walk away and let the silence work for you. Number 10. Masculine stillness always pulls her back. If there's one principle that ties everything together, it's this. Masculine stillness is irresistible. Not because it tries to pull her back, but because it refuses to move at all. In a world where most men react, overreact, and scramble for attention, the man who remains still, composed, and unshaken becomes magnetic. Think about what stillness really means. It's not silence alone. It's not pretending you don't care. Stillness is deeper. It's the discipline to remain grounded in who you are, no matter what she does. She can ignore your messages. She can post to get a reaction. She can vanish for weeks. But when you don't flinch, when you don't chase, when you don't break, you communicate something words never could, that your center doesn't depend on her. That's rare. And rarity is power. Most women are used to men who chase at the first sign of distance. They know that if they pull back, he'll lean forward. They know if they go silent, he'll break the silence. They know if they test, he'll scramble to pass. But when you stay still, when you refuse to be moved, you disrupt the pattern. Suddenly, you're not predictable. You're not just another man reacting, you're the man who forces her to sit with her own silence. The Stoics embodied this principle long before modern psychology confirmed it. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." That's stillness in action. The event, her silence, her games, her distance is outside your control. Your reaction is within it. And when your reaction is no reaction, when your presence remains steady, you hold the power. What does this look like in real life? It looks like not sending the second text when she ignores the first. It looks like not rushing to prove yourself when she tests your patience. It looks like continuing your life, your work, your fitness, your goals, as if nothing has shifted. It's not an act of defiance, it's an act of self-respect. You're not ignoring her to get her back. You're simply refusing to lose yourself in the process. And here's the paradox. That very stillness often pulls her back. Not because you chased, not because you explained, but because your calm unsettled her. She expected to control you with silence. She expected to dictate your mood with distance. But instead, you showed her that your world keeps turning with or without her. That realization is what reignites attraction, because true masculinity doesn't cling, it doesn't beg, it doesn't chase, it holds. The psychological effect is powerful. Curiosity grows where control fails. When she can't predict you, when she can't shake you, when she can't get the reaction she's used to, she begins to question her own position. Why isn't he chasing? Has he moved on? Did I lose him? Those questions stir emotions stronger than any text or speech ever could. And here's the beauty of stillness. It's not about manipulating her, Whether she comes back or not is irrelevant. What matters is that your power remains intact. You win either way. If she comes back, it's because she was drawn to the strength of your frame. If she doesn't, you've saved yourself from wasting energy on someone who never truly valued you. Most men think movement equals strength. They believe effort, persuasion, and constant communication prove their worth. But true strength is often found in restraint. Stillness isn't passive, it's active control. It's choosing not to chase, not to explain, not to collapse under pressure. It's living in a way that says, I am enough, whether you're here or not. That's why masculine stillness always pulls her back, not because it forces her, but because it reveals a kind of presence she can't ignore. In a world full of noise, your calm is the loudest signal. In a sea of men who crumble, your steadiness stands out. And even if she never returns, the truth remains, you didn't lose. You held your ground. You stayed in your frame. You lived like a man whose worth isn't dependent on a woman's reaction. And that's what makes stillness the ultimate power. Because at the end of the day, a man who can't be moved is a man who can't be controlled. And that's the kind of man women never forget. So now you see the truth. Her silence isn't empty. It's filled with tests, with subtle games, with moments designed to shake your frame. But the man who stays calm, who chooses distance, who holds his stillness, he's the one who comes out stronger every time. This video was about giving you the clarity most men never get. Stop chasing noise, start mastering silence, and you'll discover just how much power you really hold. If this spoke to you, make sure you hit subscribe. This channel is here to help you live with stoic strength, masculine calm, and the kind of discipline that makes you unforgettable. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.